Anxiety whispers lies to our hearts, painting tomorrow with shadows that may never come to pass. It builds walls where bridges should be, creating storms in the sanctuary of our minds. But what if ancient wisdom could teach us to find stillness in the chaos? Today we'll explore 7 transformative Buddhist principles that can help you reclaim your inner peace and transform your relationship with anxiety forever. The nature of suffering and the path to freedom. Buddhism teaches us that suffering is not our enemy, it is our teacher. It is not something to be feared or silenced, but something to be understood. Within the pain, there is wisdom. Within anxiety, there is a message. Instead of trying to suppress or escape it, Buddhism invites us to gently turn toward it, with curiosity and compassion. Anxiety, like all forms of mental suffering, arises not from the events themselves, but from our resistance to the natural flow of life. We grasp at certainty, we cling to control, and we fear the unknown. But life is inherently uncertain, uncontrollable, and constantly changing. The more we resist this truth, the more we suffer. Anxiety is not the result of weakness, it's the tension created when our inner world refuses to align with the impermanent nature of reality. When we begin to understand this, we stop fighting against our anxious thoughts. We no longer see them as intruders, but as invitations. We learn to breathe with them, to sit with them, to walk alongside them without letting them define us. We stop asking, how do I get rid of this, and start asking, what is this trying to show me? This shift from resistance to acceptance is the first step toward true freedom. Acceptance does not mean passivity or giving up. It means we stop adding fuel to the fire of our suffering. It means seeing clearly, without the distortion of judgment or fear. When we accept the presence of anxiety, we disarm it. We strip it of its power to control us. The Buddha taught the 4 Noble Truths, and the very first truth is the acknowledgement that suffering exists. This was not a pessimistic view, but a compassionate one. He was not saying, you will always suffer, but rather, you are not alone in your suffering. It is part of the human condition. Your anxiety is not a personal flaw, not a punishment, not a reflection of brokenness. It is simply one of the many ways suffering expresses itself in a sentient being. By accepting, to live with greater presence and compassion. Through mindfulness, we come to see our anxiety not as something to be fixed, but as something to be understood and ultimately transcended, not by force, but by insight. This is the path of liberation. Not escape, but transformation. Not denial, but truth, and truth, as the Buddha taught, is what sets us free. Principle 1. Embrace radical acceptance. Instead of trying to eliminate anxiety, Buddhism teaches us to welcome it, not as an enemy, but as an unexpected visitor. A guest who arrives uninvited, yes, but not without purpose. Like an old friend who appears during difficult times, anxiety may be uncomfortable, but it carries a message. It points to something within us that longs for attention, understanding, and care. This doesn't mean we enjoy the presence of anxiety. It doesn't mean we resign ourselves to living in fear. Rather, it means that we stop wasting precious energy fighting what is already here. We stop feeding the war inside our minds, the constant battle to control, suppress, or reject our experience. Because in that struggle, we only deepen the suffering. True peace does not come from getting rid of anxiety at all costs. It comes from no longer being at odds with it. We begin to soften, to breathe, to listen. We create a sacred pause between stimulus and reaction, a moment in which we choose compassion over judgment, presence over panic. When anxiety arises, try placing your hand gently over your heart. Feel the warmth of your own touch. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. And in that tender moment, repeat silently or aloud. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. These simple words are a powerful act of loving kindness. They are not an attempt to fix or banish anxiety, but to make space for it, gently, patiently, lovingly. This practice, rooted in the Buddhist tradition of metta, loving-kindness meditation, reminds us that we are not broken. We are simply human, experiencing what it means to be alive. By acknowledging our pain without judgment, we begin to disarm it. We shift from identification to observation, from tension to tenderness. We realize that anxiety is not all of who we are. It is just a weather pattern moving through the vast sky of our awareness. And like all weather, it passes. This shift from rejection to recognition is the beginning of deep healing. Because what we resist persists, but what we hold with compassion begins to transform, not by force, but by the natural alchemy of mindfulness. Anxiety, then, becomes a doorway, not to despair, but to deeper presence, not to self-hatred, but to self-compassion, not to fear, but to freedom. And in time we come to see even our most painful emotions can become allies on the path to awakening, if only we are willing to meet them with an open heart. If this message resonates with you, and you're seeking more moments of peace and insight, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for daily reflections rooted in ancient wisdom and modern clarity. Principle 2. Understand the illusion of the solid self. Buddhism reveals a profound truth. What we commonly call the self is not a fixed, solid thing. It is not a permanent identity etched in stone. Rather, it is more like a river, constantly flowing, endlessly changing, shaped by conditions, perceptions, and passing experiences. You are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions. You are the awareness in which these phenomena arise and dissolve. Your anxious thoughts, no matter how overwhelming they feel, are not who you are. They are passing waves on the surface of the water, not the depth of the ocean itself. They are like weather patterns in the sky of your mind. Dark clouds may form, storms may roll in, but they never last. The clear sky of your consciousness remains untouched, spacious, and vast behind it all. This is the wisdom of impermanence, anicca, one of the central pillars of the Buddha's teaching. Everything that arises will also pass away. No emotion, no thought, no sensation lasts forever. Even anxiety, when allowed to move freely without clinging or resistance, follows this natural rhythm of appearing and dissolving. When we come to truly see this, something radical shifts inside us. We stop gripping so tightly to our experience. We stop saying, "I am anxious," and instead begin to say, "Anxiety is arising in me right now." This subtle shift in language reflects a powerful shift in consciousness, from identification to observation, from being in the storm to witnessing it from a place of grounded stillness. Practice observing your thoughts the way you might watch clouds drift across an open sky. Notice how they appear from nowhere. Notice how they take shape, shift, and eventually dissolve. You don't control their arrival. You don't have to push them away. You simply watch, with curiosity, with patience, with compassion. This practice of mindful observation, known in Buddhism as vipassana or insight, creates spaciousness. And in that space, freedom begins. Instead of reacting automatically to every anxious thought, you begin to respond wisely. You might choose to breathe deeply, to take a walk, to speak kindly to yourself. You might choose simply to let the thought pass without needing to do anything at all. Because now you know, this too will pass. The more you cultivate this awareness, the less power anxiety holds over you. Not because you've conquered it, but because you've stopped clinging to it. You've stopped making it personal. You've stopped building a permanent identity out of a temporary state. In the words of the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, "Feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. So let your breath be your anchor. Let your awareness be your refuge. And let each anxious moment become an opportunity, not to panic but to wake up, to remember who you truly are, not the storm, but the sky it passes through, not the fear, but the vast stillness behind it." Principle 4. Practice loving kindness toward your anxious mind. One of the most radical and transformative teachings in Buddhism is this: extend love and compassion not only to others, not only to the world, but also to every part of yourself, even the parts you wish would go away, even the trembling hands, the racing thoughts, the tight chest of anxiety. We so often treat our anxious minds like enemies. We resist them, criticize them, try to suppress or escape them. We say things like, why am I like this, or I shouldn't feel this way. But imagine for a moment, what if instead of fighting your anxiety, you offered it the same tenderness you'd show to a frightened child? If a child came to you, eyes wide with fear, voice trembling, clinging to your arm, would you yell at them to calm down? Would you shame them for feeling scared? Of course not. You would hold them close, you would soften your voice, you would say, I'm here, you're safe, it's okay to feel this. This is how Buddhism teaches us to relate to anxiety, not with rejection, but with radical compassion, not as something to be conquered, but as something to be cared for. Because your anxiety is not a failure, it's a part of you that is hurting, and like all pain, it is calling out for love. Start each day with a loving kindness practice. Sit quietly, breathe gently, and repeat these simple yet powerful words. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. Let these words land deeply, not as a wish for some distant future, but as a blessing for this moment, just as it is. And when anxiety arises, because it will, don't turn away. Instead, meet it with the same love. Say softly to yourself, may this anxiety be met with love. May this fear be held with compassion. You can even place a hand over your heart as you say it, grounding yourself in the warmth of your own presence. Feel the pulse beneath your palm. That steady rhythm is life moving through you. Life that deserves kindness, not criticism. Each time you extend compassion to your anxiety, you begin to heal the inner split. You stop dividing yourself into the good parts and the bad parts. You stop exiling your pain. Instead, you bring it home. You hold it close. You say, you too are welcome here. This practice, known in Buddhism as metta bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness, is not sentimental. It is revolutionary, because it breaks the cycle of self-rejection and opens the door to wholeness. And in that wholeness, even anxiety loses its grip, not because it disappears, but because it is no longer feared, no longer hated, no longer alone. You are learning to become your own refuge, your own source of peace, your own wellspring of love. And in that sacred act of self-compassion, you begin to awaken, not just from anxiety, but into the fullness of your being. Principle 5. Discover the power of non-attachment. Non-attachment is one of the most misunderstood teachings in Buddhism. People often hear it and think it means withdrawing, becoming indifferent, or not caring about anything at all. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Non-attachment doesn't mean not caring. It means caring deeply while holding lightly. It means we fully engage with life, love, and responsibility, but without clinging to how things must be. It's the art of being present without being possessed by outcomes. It's loving, without gripping, acting without forcing, and hoping without fearing. When we're anxious, we often grasp tightly. We reach for certainty in a world that promises none. We try to control the uncontrollable. We attach ourselves to specific outcomes, convinced that only if things go exactly this way will we be okay. But Buddhism teaches that this very grasping, this attachment, is the root of our suffering. Not the situation itself, but the tightness with which we hold our desires, expectations, and fears. It's like holding sand in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. Instead of fighting to control every detail of life, the practice is to pause and ask, what am I trying to control right now? This simple question cuts through the noise and reveals the hidden attachments beneath our anxiety. And once you've named it, try loosening your grip, gently. Say to yourself, I care about this outcome. It matters to me. But I'm willing to let go of my need to control it. That's the heart of non-attachment. Letting go not out of apathy but out of wisdom. Letting go because we understand that life unfolds in ways we cannot always foresee. Letting go because we trust that we can meet whatever comes, not with panic but with presence. This doesn't mean we stop acting. It doesn't mean we give up on goals, boundaries, or dreams. Rather, we act from clarity rather than compulsion, from calm intention, not frantic reaction. We do what we can, and then we release what we cannot control. This is not passivity. It is power. the power to show up fully in the moment without being ruled by fear of the next, the power to move through life with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. The Buddha compared attachment to a fire, always burning, always consuming, never satisfied. Non-attachment, on the other hand, is like water, fluid, responsive, gentle, but capable of great strength. So when anxiety arises, return to this truth. You don't need to control everything to be at peace. You don't need to cling in order to care. You can care deeply, act wisely, and still let go. This is the path of liberation, where love is free, action is fearless, and peace is possible, even in the midst of uncertainty. Principle 6. Transform your relationship with uncertainty. Anxiety often arises from our deep discomfort with not knowing. We fear the unknown. We dread what might go wrong. Our minds spiral into what-ifs, trying desperately to map a future we cannot control. And yet, the Buddha taught that this very uncertainty, the unpredictable, ever-changing nature of life, is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Impermanence and uncertainty are not problems to be solved. They are the very fabric of existence. Everything we see, touch, love, and become is in motion. Relationships shift. Emotions rise and fall. Health changes. Plans unravel. This is not a mistake. It is the natural order. And when we fight against it, we suffer. But when we begin to open to it, when we start to befriend uncertainty, something remarkable happens. Anxiety loses its grip. Instead of frantically seeking control over every outcome, Buddhism invites us into a radical inner shift, to trade grasping for curiosity, to replace resistance with acceptance, to stop treating uncertainty as an enemy and start seeing it as a teacher. Ask yourself, not in fear but in gentle reflection, what if something bad happens? Notice how that question tenses the body, how it narrows the mind. It's a question rooted in fear, and fear wants guarantees. Now ask instead, what if I could be okay no matter what happens? Let those words settle in your heart. This is not false reassurance. It's not denial of difficulty. It's the recognition of your own inner strength, your capacity to meet life as it unfolds, without needing to predict or control every twist and turn. This subtle shift in questioning moves you from panic to presence, from fear to resilience. It's the difference between drowning in waves and learning to surf them, between tightening your fists around a future you can't command and opening your hands to the unknown with grace. In Buddhist practice, we cultivate this resilience through mindfulness and equanimity. We sit with what is. We breathe through uncertainty without demanding answers. And over time, we come to discover a peace that isn't dependent on everything going our way. Because true peace is not found in certainty, it's found in trust. Trust not in outcomes, but in your ability to respond wisely to whatever life brings. Trust in the present moment, which is the only place real life ever happens. Trust in the part of you that remains calm, even when the surface is stirred. So when anxiety visits, and it will, don't reach for control. Reach for awareness. Place a hand on your heart and say, I don't know what's coming, and that's okay. I will meet it with presence, not panic, with courage, not clinging. This is the path of awakening, not the path of escaping uncertainty, but of transforming your relationship with it. And in doing so, you uncover the stillness beneath the storm, the quiet knowing that whatever comes, you will meet it. Not because it's easy, but because you're learning to trust yourself more than your plans. Principle 7. Find refuge in the present moment. The present moment is always our sanctuary. No matter how chaotic life becomes, no matter how loud the mind grows, there is always one place where stillness is possible, right here in now. Anxiety does not live in the now. It feeds on imagined futures, on worst-case scenarios, on the endless spinning of what if. Or it clings to the past, replaying old wounds, reliving old stories, questioning what cannot be changed. But in the present, anxiety loses its footing. Why? Because the present moment is not a thought. It is an experience. It is direct, immediate, alive. To find refuge in the present is not to deny your fear or pain. It's not about escaping or suppressing what you feel. Rather, it is the radical act of coming home to what is actually here, beneath the stories, beneath the projections, beneath the noise. It is about saying, this is what's happening, and I will meet it with presence. This is not always easy, especially when the mind is racing or the heart is pounding. That's why we return to the body, to the senses, to the breath, because the body always lives in the present, even when the mind does not. Here is a simple and powerful practice, a form of sensory mindfulness that anchors you to now. Name 5 things you can see. Look around. Notice light, color, movement, detail. Let your eyes land gently on what surrounds you. Name 4 things you can hear. Listen. Really listen. Perhaps you hear distant traffic, birdsong, the hum of a refrigerator, your own breath. Name 3 things you can touch. Notice the texture of your clothing, the surface beneath your hands, the temperature of the air on your skin. Name 2 things you can smell. The scent of tea, your soap, the earth after rain, anything, no matter how subtle. Name 1 thing you can taste. Perhaps it's the aftertaste of a meal, the freshness of water, or simply the air. With each sense you engage, you draw yourself out of the mind's whirlwind and into direct experience. You reconnect with being rather than thinking, and in this sacred act of grounding, something extraordinary happens. The storm quiets, the breath deepens, the heart softens. You remember that peace is not somewhere far away. It is not hidden in a future without problems. It is here, available in this breath, this step, this moment. The present moment is not just a place you visit. It is a refuge you can return to again and again. A safe haven where no story has to be solved and no emotion has to be fixed. Where your only task is to arrive, to feel and to be. As the great teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once said, the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. So when anxiety arises, and it will, pause. Come back to your senses. Come back to your breath. Come back to now. Here, in this unassuming moment, lies the peace you've been searching for all along. The daily practice, a way of life. These principles are not meant to be understood intellectually, but lived experientially. Begin with just one principle that resonates with you. Perhaps start each morning with 5 minutes of loving-kindness meditation or practice mindful breathing when anxiety arises. Remember, the goal is not to never feel anxious again. It's to change your relationship with anxiety so profoundly that it no longer controls your life. Some days will be easier than others, and that's perfectly normal. Progress in Buddhist practice is measured not by the absence of difficult emotions, but by our growing capacity to meet them with wisdom and compassion. The ripple effect of inner peace. As you develop these practices, you'll notice that your newfound peace affects not just your own life, but ripples out to touch everyone around you. When we're no longer prisoners of our anxiety, we become sources of calm and stability for others. Your healing becomes a gift to the world. The path from anxiety to peace is not about reaching some final destination where anxiety never arises. It's about developing such a loving, spacious relationship with all of your experience that anxiety, when it comes, is met with the warmth of an old friend rather than the resistance of an enemy. Your anxiety has been trying to protect you, often in misguided ways. By approaching it with the wisdom and compassion of Buddhist practice, you honor its intention while transforming its expression. In this transformation, you discover that peace was never something you needed to find. It was always there, waiting patiently beneath the storm. The journey continues, one breath at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. May you find the peace that surpasses understanding, and may your peace become a beacon of hope for all who cross your path.